We know what Ben Simmons can do. We know what Joel Embiid can do when healthy. He's the best big man in the game. But in terms of what you need inside and outside that locker room, what you're going to demand from one another on the basketball court, what the city of Philadelphia likes to be ingratiated with, I'm saying that Jimmy Butler is one of the ideal individuals to fit the fabric of that franchise. That's why it's not just about his basketball skills and how many years he has left in him or whatever. If you're going to give him 4, it's all right to take the risk at a 5th year because you could always trade him or do something else down the line. But because of the situation that they're in, as I came on this show and reported a couple of weeks ago when I said James Harden and Jimmy Butler had been talking to one another. Jimmy Butler had been trying to get to Houston. That's what I came right on this show and reported. Now we're hearing, okay, they might try to force Philadelphia's hand. If you're Philadelphia, don't capitulate to that. Don't sit up there and work out a trade. You offer him the 5-year max. You dare him to walk away because if he does walk away, Max, it can't be to Houston. They need Philly to make a deal in order for him to get to Houston because they don't have the cap space. So it's not like he could walk away and go to Houston, which is where he supposedly may want to go. And if that is not your fear, offer him the 5-year deal and dare him to walk away from it.
There's a lot of wisdom to what you're saying because this is a high-leverage moment for the Sixers. Mm-hmm. And Butler, maybe, could put him over the top in the East. If Kawhi leaves the East, you look at the Celtics right now and what they're likely to look like next year. Mm-hmm. You like the Sixers-Bucks. The Sixers might like that matchup with the Bucks, actually.
They did. They was telling me before the playoffs that that's what matchup they wanted.
So the Sixers could be thinking we could get out of the East. And without Clay and KD on the Warriors, certainly not healthy, right, we could win the whole thing next year if we have Jimmy Butler. So that's an argument I can't really refute. Mm-hmm. But let me say this.
Sure.
Jimmy Butler is worth a max contract per year. There are not a lot of guys who I really believe are worth the most you can give them because the way the salary cap is, that means it's a third of your whole budget. So did they take you a third of the way to a championship? Now you got to divvy everything else up. Mm-hmm. But Jimmy Butler's worth it. He made me a believer these last playoffs. I mean, a believer. I was on the fence about him, the effect in the locker room, the fact that maybe he thinks he's a little bit better than he actually is. Like, is he good enough to be the best player on a championship team? Because he plays like he thinks that way about himself. Mm-hmm. But he made me a believer in these last playoffs. Here's the problem. He is 29 years old. Mm-hmm. I don't think there's a lot of tread left on those tires. I already noticed, and it's been written about, the defense isn't quite the same. He, like LeBron, by the way, LeBron knows when to turn it on and turn it off. He can still play defense at important times. That's not Jimmy Butler's, that's not the way he plays basketball. Okay. But of necessity, last year, I think it started to be a little bit, which tells me that there's a limit in terms of how far and how hard anyone can push their bodies, and Jimmy Butler's been at it for a long time right now. So I think he'll be worth that deal for the next couple of years, and maybe that's worth it to the Sixers because they're there now knocking on the door. But a 5-year deal, if he's already maybe the defensive effectiveness isn't the same, and he's 29, what's it going to look like at 34 making $40 million a year?
That's how you look at it. Here's how I look at it. First of all, let's look at his skill set per se in terms of his ability to shoot the basketball, dribble the basketball, big, strong body, 6'5", built like a chiseled brick house, not a weakling at all, goes after it, et cetera, et cetera. But it's not, again, if you're looking at a Russell Westbrook, a Derrick Rose type and stuff like that, I get you. The point is, Jimmy Butler was never known for having extreme hops. He was never known to have an aerial assault. He just knows how to play. And he can bruise you and beat you up en route to being successful, at an all-star caliber level, albeit not a superstar level. Now we take into account who he's playing for. Remember, they didn't get rid of Brett Brown, Max Kellerman. Why? Because they had promised Brett Brown 3 years, $15 million before the playoffs began and what have you. And if something had happened and they wanted to move in a different direction, they were going to owe that man $15 million. They weren't going to do that. So you have him. You have Ben Simmons. Last time we checked, still don't have a jump shot, okay? Now, he's locked in, got one more year left before he got a qualifying offer that they'll have to deal with. Joel Embiid locked in for the next 2 years. Considering the fabric of your team, the question mark that exists around Tobias Harris. Now, if you told me and your argument was, well, listen, we could get away with giving Tobias Harris a lot less and keeping him, that's a different argument. But we're surmising they're going to have to pay him too, or they're going to have to elect not to pay him. And you're saying, who you going to pick? I'm talking about who you are as a franchise, the fabric of your franchise, what it brings to the table. And then you've got Jimmy Butler, who basically has said, hey, I could sit there and lollygag to some degree for the first 3 quarters because Brett Brown needs me in the fourth quarter, but he needs Ben Simmons active with the ball in his hands for the first 2.5 to 3 quarters. The way things are structured, and Philly being who they are, and Houston needing Philly in order to make the deal. All I'm saying is he ain't going to walk away from $50 million.
Well, although don't forget, Houston, no taxes either.
I understand that, but I'm saying he's not going to walk away from $50 million, to go somewhere else other than Houston. I'm betting that on that. And then you also got to take it to, listen, Max, hey, if you're going to walk away, why should I help you? What are you going to give me back? You going to give me back Clint Capella? I don't need him. I got Embiid.
No, Max, you don't think Philly should sign him, even though Embiid, with his injury history, and we know Simmons doesn't shoot outside the paint, just on Jimmy, those two issues
there's
alone?
a very good argument to sign him, but the argument is right now, if you believe you can win a championship this year, next year, you sign him, but understand you're likely going to be overpaying 3 or 4 years from now. I get that argument, but there is a very strong argument to be made that you can get something for him now. Not only could you get something, but you could reduce the stress on your cap. So you have cap flexibility plus the stuff you can get for Jimmy Butler.
Just for clarification purposes, what you're saying is, if you got an opportunity to get Clint Capella, Eric Gordon, and another piece, you're saying that's worth Jimmy Butler. I'm just being clear.
For the Sixers,
yeah.
Long term,
okay.
Yes.
No. I'm just saying I got that point. And you know what? That's a damn good point. That's debatable in and of itself, but it's very interesting. All I'm saying is if you Philadelphia, don't force your hand.
Yeah.
Listen, don't sit up there and think that you're compelled to make a deal with Houston. Excuse me, Jimmy Butler, we might be able to get a deal from somebody else if we sign you for 5 years and sign and trade you. Why I gotta be Houston? Thanks for watching ESPN on YouTube. For more sports highlights and analysis, be sure to download the ESPN app. And for live streaming sports and premium content, subscribe to ESPN+.